6, we're looking at the other way to solve proportion problems, and we're going to be translating words into an equation, noting special words. We know that is means equals, of means multiply. So these are the secrets to doing this. So we're just going to change this to an equation. What is 30%? And we're going to change the percent either to a decimal or to a fraction. I like the decimals, so we'll move the decimal point 2 places to the left. Of means multiply, 60. So all we're going to have to do here now is multiply 30 hundredths times 60, and the answer is 18. So 18 is 30% of 60. In other words, it's almost a third. So if we multiply this by 3, we would get 54, which is almost a third. This is 33 and a third percent would be a third. What is 40%? And again, we're going to change this percent to a decimal by moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. Of means multiply, 90. Now, some of you will say, oh, I can do that without doing all this. Well, you can, but you won't get all the points. So I need to see you write out the equation, and then you can solve it, and you'll be able to use your calculator to do that. And we're going to multiply 40 hundredths times 90, and we get 36 for our answer. And here we go. I think we weren't probably supposed to solve these. We're just supposed to set them up, but we've done a lot of good work. So we have 142%. I'm going to change the percent to a decimal. I'm moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. Of means multiply. 75 is what number? So this is all we have to put in our calculator. Times 75. It looks like x is equal to 106 and 5/10. 235% of 60 amounts to, this is equals, what number? So we're going to change the percent to a decimal. Of means multiply. 60 equals or amounts to what? So I'm just putting this in my calculator. And I am getting x is equal to 14 1/10. That's how much I'm looking at my calculator. This is actually 141 is equal to x. I think I didn't read my calculator. I think I've got a dirt spot on my calculator that made it look like the decimal point was not in the right place. Because I know that 235% is over twice as big as this number. So twice as big, 200% would be 120, and this is a little bit bigger, so 141 makes a whole lot more sense. Okay, 40% of what number is 225? So we're going to make this a decimal. 40 hundredths of means multiply. What number is 225? So now we've multiplied x by this. We're going to have to divide both sides by 40 hundredths. That tells us what x is. So on my calculator, 225 divided by 40 hundredths. would be 562 5/10. So this is close to half. It's not nearly half, but close to half of this would be 250, right? 280 actually, which gives us a relative good answer. 80% of what number is 94? We're going to move this decimal point 2 places to the left. Of means multiply. What number is 94? So we're going to divide both sides by 80/100ths because that's what they've multiplied by. So now we know what 1x is. 94 divided by 80/100ths. 117 5/10. So almost all of this number, 80% of it, is 94, which is true. It's a good piece of it. 19/100ths is 0.5% of what number? So this is, we're going to change this to a decimal. We're moving it 2 places to the left of what number? So we're going to divide both sides by 5/1000ths. So I have 19/100ths divided by 5/1000ths is 38. One percent of this would be 0.38, so 0.5% would be 1/2 of that, which would be 19/100. So there you go. 5 6/10 is this percent of what number? We're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the left of what number? So now we're going to divide both sides by 8/1000ths. And we're left with 1x is equal to 5 6/10 divided by 700. So there's nothing really difficult about that until you get to the next part. And if you are looking for x, which you are here, you're looking for what percent, you're looking for what percent, you're looking for what percent, you're looking for what percent. When you get your answer, after you solve the proportion, you're going to have to change the decimal to a percent. Because that's what you would do if you knew the percent. You would change it to a decimal in the equation. Now you're going to get a number, and it's going to be the decimal, and you're going to have to change that decimal to a percent. And that's just in this. You know, that's not what we need to do in the other one. When we use a proportion to solve, then the tricky part is setting it up. In this one, the tricky part is that the percent has to be a decimal when you do your calculations. Whether it's here and you're changing this percent to a decimal, or here, we're going to get a decimal, and to find out what percent, we'll have to change the decimal to a percent. So here we go. 75 is what percent of 250? So that's easy. And we know this is easy. We're going to divide both sides by 250. So we have 1x is equal to, and I'm going to get a decimal. 75 divided by 250 is going to be this decimal, 3/10. We want to know what percent. So now we're going to have to change this to a percent. We're going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and we get 30% for our answer. When we solve the equation, we get the decimal, and we have to change that to a percent. So let's set up the next one. 16 1/10 is what percent of 46? So we know we're going to divide both sides by 46. So now we're going to get a decimal. 16 1/10 divided by 46. And we get this decimal. This is the decimal. And now we're going to change that decimal to a percent by moving this decimal point 2 places to the right. 35%. 35 hundredths is 35 out of 100, which is 35%. What percent of 60 is $92? So we'll divide both sides by 60. And I know we're dividing by what x has been multiplied by. So we're left with x. And again, we're going to get a decimal. 92 divided by 60. And I'm getting this decimal. And I know that that is really, whoops. I know it's that. So when I move the decimal point 2 places to the right, I'm getting that percent. That's the percent. Okay, let's do the last one. What percent of 150 is $213? Well, x is multiplied by 150, so we're going to divide both sides by 150. And you know I like that, both sides. So 1x is equal to, and this is going to be, you know, not 50%. That'd have to be 300 to be 50%. So it's going to be less than 50%. And I'm getting, this is the decimal. Now I'm going to change that to a percent. I'm moving it over here. So x is 142%. So you can see that this is more than all of this. So we're going to be over 100%. We're going to be about 200% would be $300. So we're not there yet. So it's going to be less than 150%.